Zombies do exist. We're told that horror movies aren't real, but sometimes horror is based on reality. For an ant, there is no fate worse than coming across the cordyceps fungus. Once an ant is infected, the fungus slowly hijacks her mind, all the while consuming her from the inside out. When the ant's body is barely more than an empty shell executing the fungus's will, the fungus steers her to the perfect place to die. Deep within the tropical rainforest, a carpenter ant hurries along her way. She's out foraging for food to feed her colony, just like she does every day. But today isn't like any other day. She usually prefers to stay within the safety of trees, but today she embarks on a foraging trail that descends to the forest floor. While down there, she passes underneath a low-hanging leaf that is almost precisely 25 centimeters off the ground. There's something peculiar hanging off the underside of this particular leaf, but the ant doesn't notice it. Even if she did, it wouldn't make a difference, as her fate is already sealed. Another ant's corpse is attached to this leaf, and it belongs to her own sister. Down to the last detail, there is nothing random about the dead ant's position. But is our ant even capable of recognizing the mutilated remains as those of another ant? A fungus has burst from the corpse, though the real danger here for our ant is a stalk that has sprouted from the dead ant's head. It's topped with a bulb of infectious spores which rain down upon our ant as she passes underneath, infecting her too. She doesn't know it yet, but she is condemned to the same fate as her sister. She has just been infected by a fungus belonging to a species known as cordyceps. This particular species is known as ophiocordyceps unilateralis, which researchers have named the zombie ant fungus, and for good reason. There are over 600 species of cordyceps, but none are quite as terrifying as the zombie ant fungus, which has inspired many horror writers, including the writers of The Last of Us. While it's still fiction for humans, it's a real-life horror story for ants. For now, the ant continues about her day as usual. By the time she returns to her nest at night, the spores have already penetrated her exoskeleton and have started to multiply within her body. A single deadly fungus could wipe out an entire ant colony. Within the colony, they live in tight-knit communities and suffer from a lack of genetic diversity, making ants particularly vulnerable to disease. Over the millennia, this threat has evolved into an arms race between ant and fungus. So ants have developed a rather advanced healthcare system. While many humans have social security, ants have social immunity. This is a colony-wide defense mechanism towards disease, where ants control the airflow, humidity, and waste in their nests, and groom one another. Ants even coat themselves with antibiotics. If an ant has the misfortune of falling sick anyway, it will excrete a chemical signal that will warn the others. Humans didn't invent social distancing. Infected ants are isolated, banished from the nest, or even killed with the goal of saving the colony. If an ant happens to die within the nest, its body is moved to a graveyard where it cannot infect other ants. And all of this is completely useless against the zombie ant fungus. Cordyceps can't reveal its hand too early, lest it be detected by the ant's social immunity. So it starts eating away at the non-essential parts of the ant's tissue first, leaving the vital organs intact. Yet it's still business as usual for our ant, who remains blissfully unaware that cordyceps is slowly but surely interlacing with her muscles and spreading throughout her entire body. Eventually, one of her muscles starts to twitch. This is the beginning of the end. If you're enjoying this video, please consider giving it a like or subscribing for more nature content like this. Days go by, and her condition only deteriorates. The twitching worsens. The ant, one of the most social creatures on Earth, becomes withdrawn from the rest of her colony. And then the unthinkable happens. While scurrying along a foraging trail high up within the trees, she falls. Her entire body convulsed for the first time, causing her to lose her grip on the tree. She's not hurt by the fall because she's so tiny, but ants don't fall. And so this begs the question, is she truly still an ant? Or is she in fact a fungus, hiding within the shell of an ant? One thing is for sure. At this point, her body is barely more than the fungus's puppet. She needs to leave the nest. She can't stand to be up there anymore. If she were to die within the nest, the other ants would just remove her corpse before the fungus has the chance to reproduce and infect other ants. Besides, she has one final mission to perform for the fungus before she dies. For now, she wanders alone, falling over herself like a drunkard as she convulses. When she inevitably falls, she no longer tries to join the other ants high up above the ground. She stays on saplings less than half a meter above the ground, stumbling over different leaves, searching. The fungus is in complete control. This is nothing like normal ant behaviour. Finally, she finds the underside of the perfect leaf. This leaf is almost precisely 25 centimeters above the ground and faces north-northwest. The temperature is between 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, and the humidity is 94 to 95%. Around solar noon, when the sun is highest in the sky, the ant stops abruptly. She has found the perfect conditions in which cordyceps thrives. So she bites into the large bulging vein in the leaf like a vampire biting into the neck of its victim. This is what researchers have named the death grip, because once she locks her jaws onto the leaf, she will never let go. Strangely enough, this specific leaf that she's chosen happens to be right next to the corpse of the ant who initially affected her. Other ants of different species pass her. Under normal circumstances, she would be extremely aggressive towards these rival ants, but now she shows no response. Here, she dutifully waits until the fungus completely consumes her. It takes her up to 6 hours to die. Once cordyceps grows too large to be contained within the ant's tiny body, it bursts from her exoskeleton and a stalk starts to sprout from her head. She and her sister are not the first to suffer from this fate, and they won't be the last either. The first records of this fungus are in the form of leaf fossils with the marks of the ant's death grip. This dates back over 48 million years ago, when the Earth was covered in a massive prehistoric rainforest. Soon, other ants will cross her path and will suffer a similar fate. Likewise, they will die beside her. Eventually, this will transform into a graveyard of cordyceps-infected ants, with up to 25 ants per square meter. Given the precise control over the ants, it's hard to imagine that cordyceps has no actual consciousness. For years, cordyceps has baffled researchers, and it's only very recently that they've started to gather insight into how cordyceps actually works. They initially assumed that the fungus works by infecting the ant's brain, rewiring it, and essentially hijacking it, transforming the ant into a stereotypical mindless zombie like we often see in Hollywood. To confirm this theory, they studied the corpses of cordyceps-infected ants and discovered that the truth behind how this fungus actually works is far more horrifying than they once thought. They found that cordyceps was abundant throughout the ants' bodies. It had deteriorated the muscles in the ants' jaws, making it impossible for them to release their death grip, even if they wished to. Cordyceps has interlaced with the ants' muscle fibers, building networks that encapsulate the muscles. But the most shocking part was that not a single fungal cell was found within the brain. This revolutionized the way researchers view cordyceps, as it turns ants into something much more terrifying than a typical mindless zombie we see in Hollywood. This could mean that ants are entirely self-aware while under the possession of cordyceps. That while they behave as zombies under the control of cordyceps, they were conscious while being used as puppets, and there is nothing they could do about it. So how does a non-sentient fungal network take over an ant's body? Cordyceps remains mostly an unsolved mystery to researchers. They know that fungal cells communicate with each other within the ant's body, and that this is most likely very important. They also know that cordyceps uses chemicals to control ants. So does this mean that ants are actually self-aware during the zombification process and subsequent death? Or do these chemical releases numb them to their reality? How does cordyceps exert such precise control over an ant? How does it know exactly how to find the perfect conditions, all without ever touching the ant's brain? Well, no one knows. It remains a mystery for future research to unlock. I for one feel sorry for these ants. They are actually quite formidable creatures. They invented farming millions of years before humans did. Click this video next if you're interested in these remarkable creatures.